All right, folks, I need you to keep this video in your back pocket. As I've said before, one of the greatest challenges in covering or debating Donald Trump is trying to keep track of and remember the fire hose, the endless fire hose of self-serving, corrupt, potentially illegal and unconstitutional acts of Donald Trump while he is seeking or is in power. And Connecticut Senator Democrat Chris Murphy just put on a masterclass performance on the floor of the Senate, trying to make it easy and digestible using visual aid to track all this shit. So again, keep this in your back pocket. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Folks, it is important to keep track of Donald Trump's corruption. We cannot take it for granted. We can't get numb to it because it's important to keep track of politicians' corruption. Donald Trump is peerlessly corrupt. That he is by far the most corrupt president. This is by far the most corrupt administration in the history of the republic. And if Democrats ever retake power, they should pursue punishment against Trump and his cohorts. So we're going to play these clips from Senator Chris Murphy on the floor of the Senate and unpack them together.
The things that have happened over the last 6 weeks are unprecedented. The president and his billionaire friends are not supposed to steal from us. They are not supposed to use their power and their access to power, their access to government levers, to rig the rules to enrich themselves. That has always been wrong. It is still wrong. And we do not have to accept this. And so in the next few minutes, I want to try out an exercise. I want to try to lay out for you, as quickly as I can, just some of the most significant instances of blatantly corrupt activity that's happened in just the first 6 weeks of Trump's presidency. When you see it all together, there is no way to avoid a simple conclusion. This White House is on its way to being the most corrupt in the history of the country. And just because they are doing it out in the open for everybody to see doesn't mean that it's not corrupt. The things.
Yes, well said. And again, his strategy, Trump's strategy, is just overwhelming you with this shit and hoping you get numb and desensitized and you check out. You cannot. Do not do that. We cannot sacrifice that level of expectation for the highest office in the land simply because Trump egregiously violates it. We need to know, we need to keep track, and then once he loses power, he needs to be punished accordingly by the next administration. Let's continue.
We're going to start on January 17th. On January 17th, Trump launches the meme coin. This is maybe the most corrupt of all the acts, because what is the meme coin? The meme coin is essentially a mechanism by which Russian oligarchs or corporate CEOs can literally send money privately directly to Donald Trump. Nobody knows who buys the meme coin, but Trump makes money when people buy it. And so it is just an open sewer valve that allows for anybody who is trying to influence the Trump administration to be able to secretly funnel money to Donald Trump. He reserves 80% of the coin. He waits to release that coin until the price jumps back up again, which essentially means he's waiting for people who want favors from him to buy a bunch of the coin to inflate the value so that he releases more and makes more money. It's a disgusting kind of corruption, because this is essentially Trump just posting his Venmo for anybody secretly to wire him as much money as they want. We've never seen something like this before, where anybody who has anything to gain from the Trump administration through a manipulation of the value of Trump's meme coin can funnel money directly to the president, whisper in his ear, "That was me. That was me that purchased all that coin, that jumped up the value, that allowed you to release new coin. Hey, take care of me on the back end."
And think about it. Think about the potential abuse. Let's say Vladimir Putin, listen, Elon Musk is, as far as we know, the richest man in the world, but it's long been speculated for years that because we don't know the extent of Vladimir Putin's wealth, and given that, Russia is a blatant oligarchy and has been for decades, it's entirely possible, economists have speculated, financial analysts have speculated, that Vladimir Putin is perhaps the richest man on earth. We just don't know the extent of it. So imagine a foreign adversary like Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping or others using Trump's corrupt bullshit meme coin as a way of extracting favors from Trump in exchange for money, engaging in just blatant bribery. It would be a very devastatingly opaque way for Trump to do that with very little oversight. So good on Chris Murphy for pointing that out. Here's another clip.
On February 6th, something absolutely stunning happens. Pam Bondi, the AG, issues a memorandum in which she proposes to dull the criminal enforcement of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. If you are representing a foreign government before the United States, you have to register so that we know if you are acting on behalf of American interests or you are acting on behalf of foreign interests. In the prior Trump administration, Trump officials got in big trouble for secretly working for and getting paid by foreign governments without registering. Well, what does Trump announce? That they are going to limit the applicability of the enforcement of that statute, making it much easier for Trump's friends, for his MAGA crowd, for the people who show up to Mar-a-Lago, to get paid quietly by foreign governments in order to influence Donald Trump.
Again, extremely sinister. We know, for example, with the half-baked, I say half-baked because it wasn't allowed to fully develop, House investigation by House Democrats into Trump's various corrupt foreign interests, this would only further aid and abet him and his, coterie of elite billionaires. Again, just a stunning example of the Trump administration choosing not to enforce anti-corruption laws. We'll continue.
On February 10th, maybe aside from the meme coin, the most stunning act of corruption, the Eric Adams quid pro quo, in which Eric Adams, indicted for corruption, is let off the hook. His charges are dismissed in exchange for the mayor's pledge of political loyalty to Donald Trump. They literally went on TV and announced the deal that we're getting rid of the charges against Eric Adams as long as the mayor pledges political loyalty to the president. That was so corrupt that 6 or 7 DOJ officials resigned because they refused to withdraw those charges. But the deal went through because the 7th or the 8th or the 9th official finally filed the withdrawal. And now in America, it is 100% clear that if you want to get away with corruption, if you want to steal from your constituents and you're an elected official in this country, all you have to do is just sign up for political loyalty with Donald Trump, and he will instruct the Department of Justice to let you get away.
Again, we've talked about the Eric Adams quid pro quo in previous videos, and with all the other shit going on, it's easy to forget. But perhaps not the greatest example of financial corruption. The meme coin is a better example of that. But in terms of criminal justice corruption, this might be the greatest singular act of it. Eric Adams, an elected Democratic mayor, was being investigated by the Biden administration, by the DOJ, long before any political disagreements between Adams and the Biden administration. As a matter of fact, I believe the investigation began in its infancy before Adams even took office, if I remember correctly. But we went through with Pisco, friend of the show, attorney. He helped us break it down. But when the order was given to prosecutors to drop the Eric Adams case, they specifically said, we have no legal basis to do so. We have no reason to believe that the case was, improperly prosecuted or anything like that. You got the facts wrong or that there was any sort of factual error. They just wanted the case dropped. And even the conservative Trump-appointed acting attorney, U.S. attorney, was the one who was like, this seems like a quid pro quo. And she resigned rather than enforce it. And there were other conservative attorneys as well who protested. I mean, just amazing. And they refused to dismiss the charges without prejudice. Or with prejudice, excuse me. They wanted to dismiss the charges without prejudice so they could bring the charges back up against Adams if Adams didn't toe the political line. Just so egregious. Nothing like this ever in the Biden administration or the Obama administration or the Clinton administration. Unparalleled, unprecedented. Here's another clip.
On February 26th, maybe the third most significant of brazen corruption happens. News breaks that Elon Musk is just going to have the FAA cancel a contract with Verizon that has been in the works for years and instead just substitute in Starlink for Verizon. Just extraordinary that this is happening in plain view of everybody. Elon Musk takes his private company, uses his access to government to just shove out of the way his competitors and instead insert himself and his company. Again, we've never seen this ever before in American history, and now it's happening on a daily basis.
It is. We've covered that in a previous video, a stunning act. Musk goes in and with Doge purges the FAA. We just learned today that he was pressuring Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy to fire air traffic controllers at a time when planes are falling out of the sky. And at the same time, despite the corrupt incentives and conflicts of interest, and we were assured that there would be no conflicts of interest because Musk is so pure, he would actually recuse himself from any potential conflicts of interest. And then if he failed to do so, Trump would intervene. Turns out none of that happened. And an egregious act of corruption, a clear violation of conflicts of interest occurred with this particular contract. We've never seen anything like it, nothing like this. Imagine if George Soros or Mark Cuban or another liberal billionaire had a similar position in the Biden White House and did something similar. How would Trump and Republicans and MAGA react? But because it's their guy, because it's them, and they're unprincipled hypocrites, they don't care. Here's another clip.
This week, Wired reports that guests are paying millions of dollars to dine with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and business leaders are being targeted with advertisements that sell access to a one-on-one meeting with the President of the United States for $5 million. Come on! Like, seriously. There's advertisements that say if you're a business CEO and you pay $5 million to Donald Trump, you can get a meeting with him. Like, this isn't okay. And yet, because it happens every single day, they're asking for us to pretend that this is normal.
Besides which, unfortunately, even, ethics requirements, ethics laws, the emoluments clause of the Constitution, these things require enforcement from the parties in power. And Donald Trump's Republican Party will never hold him accountable. If he has one talent, if Trump has one talent, it's understanding his base. And he famously said in his first term, as he was running for president, he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote. I believe that that was prophecy. I believe that Donald Trump intuited, and I believe it's real here, that he could indeed do something like that and would not lose meaningful support from the Republican Party and certainly elected Republicans. They're too afraid of him. They will let him run roughshod and do whatever he wants. There is no limiting principle. One last clip from Senator Chris Murphy.
So I lay it all out for you this afternoon in the hopes that it is not too late for us to decide to stand up as a body and as a nation to say that this isn't okay. The Trump meme coin is not okay. It's not okay for people who have interest before the federal government to be able to anonymously funnel money to the President of the United States. It's not okay for Elon Musk to have access to Department of Labor enforcement data against him or his competitors that nobody else gets access to. It's not okay to just cancel contracts that were going to Musk's competitors and substitute in his own business just because he has the ability to do it as a friend of Donald Trump. Like, the rule of law matters. Doing things by the rules matter. This level of corruption was not occurring behind the scenes prior. It is not just that the cover got pulled off of it all. And it's our decision as a body and as a country to decide not to normalize this scale of corruption.
I hope we don't. Unfortunately, one political party is willfully either they're aiding and abetting it, they're celebrating it, or they're choosing to ignore it. Okay? And the other party is overwhelmed with the fire hose of bullshit, and they lack meaningful power to enforce consequences, which is why I believe that it's incumbent that we win the 2026 midterms in a historic fashion, and then we win the 2028 presidential election, and we hold these corrupt, unprecedentedly corrupt actors, including Trump, accountable to the best of our ability. But in the meantime, let me know what you think. in the comments. And be sure, folks, to keep this in your back pocket.